Welcome to the first Hope Rising Standing with Survivors breakfast. My name is Seal Sano and I have been affiliated with Helpmate since 1999, wearing many hats such as volunteer, employee, board member, and board chair, as well as co-chair of this event. We are here today to acknowledge the strength and courage it takes for survivors of domestic violence to come forward seeking safety, shelter, and support from Helpmate. And now I'd like to introduce my co-chair, Art Mandler.
Thank you, Seal. Over the last 30 years, I too have worn many hats as a volunteer with Helpmate, including serving on the board, working as a community educator in the high schools, and I was also involved from the beginning with Men Who Care, a group that hosts a benefit luncheon every other year to attract 300 or more men. For 44 years, Helpmate has been the only nonprofit organization in Buncombe County to provide a full range of services to victims and survivors of intimate partner abuse.
By sheltering families escaping violence, operating a 24-hour hotline, providing court advocacy, counseling, case management, safety planning, and education, Helpmate provides hope to thousands of adult and child survivors trapped in violent relationships.
When survivors are provided safety from their abusive partners and the opportunity to create new lives for themselves, free from the daily shadow of fear, hope rises.
When Helpmate's court advocates guide survivors through the often intimidating process of obtaining a restraining order, hope rises.
When victims trapped without resources are provided housing, clothing, educational opportunities, and counseling, hope rises.
And when the greater community comes together to contribute financial resources, volunteer hours, and emotional support, hope rises.
Helpmate's dedicated staff do outstanding work. Over the past few years, they've struggled with larger than usual caseloads, COVID restrictions, economic instability, and an overheated housing market. They are our quiet heroes.
Without the backing of the larger community, the important work simply could not go on. Your support today lets survivors know they can rise. Thank you for joining us.
Hope Rising is a new and innovative experiment for Helpmate. In response to community feedback, we decided to create an event that focuses on inclusiveness and that provides opportunities for both in-person and remote supporters to participate. Meeting at breakfast is also a new idea, as is encouraging smaller groups across Buncombe County to gather in their own spaces with the support of the Helpmate staff and a video. We look forward to hearing your thoughts and feelings about this program.
Helpmate is constantly endeavoring to grow, to become more efficient, inclusive, effective, and proactive. None of that happens in a vacuum. Helpmate's work requires constant interaction with the wider community, law enforcement, government leadership, media, and other nonprofit organizations. This broad network of concerned and caring people has been collaborating for decades to reduce the horrific and sometimes fatal impacts of intimate partner abuse.
Thank you so much for being a part of this critical community team. We also want to thank our devoted and generous sponsors who have offset so many of the costs of organizing this event. Please, if you know them or do business with them, thank them as well.
Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of Helpmate, April Burgess Johnson.
Hello, I'm April Burgess Johnson, and I have the privilege of serving as Helpmate's Executive Director. As I approach my 10th year with Helpmate, I'm taking the opportunity to reflect on what this past decade has meant for our community. For nearly half a century, Helpmate has been at the forefront of the movement to end domestic violence in North Carolina. I've been so fortunate to join an organization with such a stellar history and to be a part of the efforts to continue that impressive legacy. During the past decade, our organization has risen up in a multitude of ways to improve safety for survivors. During 2013, my first full year here, we saw an unprecedented number of deaths related to domestic violence. This tragic reality served as a wake-up call that we needed to make major changes to do things differently. We started with making sure that survivors knew how to find us. We expanded our outreach team, and our community launched the Enough campaign, through which Helpmate's hotline number was on billboards, posters, television ads, county buildings, and city buses all over the community. Our hotline volume instantly rose. We wanted to be sure that when survivors reached out to us for help, we understood their level of danger so that we could help them plan for their safety. Helpmate staff became trained in the danger assessment, a tool from Johns Hopkins University that has a 94% accuracy rate at predicting just one thing: how likely is it that a survivor will be murdered by their abuser without intervention? Local law enforcement received training on using a field instrument version of this tool to determine risk right at the crime scene of a domestic violence call. This protocol, called the Lethality Assessment Protocol, gives officers the tools and information they need to connect survivors with Helpmate's hotline while they're on the scene so that we may intervene early. Helpmate began a similar program inside medical offices because we know that in the year prior to their death, 44% of domestic violence homicide victims sought medical care. We helped start a statewide initiative in collaboration with the North Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence to replicate this project elsewhere in our state, and that program received national recognition. Our goal on both of these programs was to integrate our services with other providers to reach survivors where they were so they could rise up and seek out help. Helpmate's hotline volume and service requests rose again. We know that in homes where there's domestic violence, children are significantly impacted. When a batterer decides to use power and control to manipulate, demean, threaten, and abuse their partner, children learn these behaviors. They learn that home is not a safe place to be. They learn that you have to take what you want at all costs. Sometimes they try to protect their non-abusive parent and are harmed in the process. Sometimes the batterer hurts them as well or uses them as a tool to abuse the other parent. These behaviors can have lifelong consequences. Therefore, we've been pleased to partner with Child Protective Services to work together to support families experiencing co-occurring domestic violence and child maltreatment. They now implement the Safe and Together model, which places the responsibility for addressing battering exactly where it should be, on the batterer. Survivors cannot be asked to control the behaviors of their abusive partners. This model improves outcomes for kids. It reduces emergency room visits and lowers the number of out-of-home placements by allowing the child to remain in the care of the safe and protective parent. Helpmate is now working with the Mountain Child Advocacy Center to launch a specialized response program targeted towards children who've experienced domestic abuse, either in their own homes or in their dating relationships. A cornerstone of this project is a 3-tiered support group series, which includes targeted work with teens who've experienced domestic abuse to help them learn how to cope, respond, and stay safe. At the same time that the teens are in a group, their protective parents will be in a companion group where they'll learn the skills needed to support their children who've suffered these experiences. And we'll also have therapeutic play for small children. These nested strategies are intended to help break the intergenerational cycle of abuse. We know that to truly end domestic violence, we must prevent it. Helpmate partnered with Our Voice, the Mountain Child Advocacy Center, and Pisgah Legal Services to produce the Pathways to Prevention Plan, a long-term strategic plan aimed at reaching people where they live, learn, work, play, and worship. This plan was the first of its kind in North Carolina to use CDC-endorsed strategies to help teach our community how to rise out of some of the negative messages we've all learned. We want everyone to be able to disagree peacefully, to demonstrate respect for others, and to form relationships based on trust and shared power. Many of the people calling Helpmate are seeking refuge as they rise up from the storm. Every year, about 350 to 400 families seek emergency shelter with us. We provide safe shelter for about 250 people from 150 families. We work with those who we don't have space to accommodate to help them find safety elsewhere, often in another county. This is a hard thing to do, as it's clearly wrong that a survivor should have to leave their home, their community, their job, and the children's school just to find safety. Many choose not to do so. We know that in communities like ours, where there's not enough shelter space for domestic violence victims, more people are killed by their abuser. I'm pleased to let you know that we're working towards addressing this issue. With the support so far from Dogwood Health Trust, the City of Asheville, and Buncombe County, we're making steady progress towards our goal of doubling the size of our emergency shelter. In 2016, Helpmate became a founding member and on-site partner at the Buncombe County Family Justice Center. This center, commonly called the FJC, was the culmination of more than 2 years of diligent planning by community leaders from law enforcement, courts, nonprofits, medical providers, legal aid, and county government. Prior to the opening of the Family Justice Center, victims had to fill out 61 forms, talk to 21 people in a dozen different places, and receive more than 30 referrals, all in the first 3 days after their traumatic event. It was a gauntlet that many could not run. Now survivors go to one safe place to get help from multiple providers. They don't have to repeat their story over and over and over again. They don't have to drive all over town while they're physically and emotionally exhausted with their kids in tow trying to get help. They come to the FJC, and one of Helpmate's dedicated intake specialists meets with them and arranges for services to come to them to help. We have much to celebrate. Hope has risen in our community. Today, we serve nearly triple the number of survivors and answer 5 times as many hotline calls as we did just a decade ago. Homicide rates have gone down and will fall even farther once our new shelter is open. Children get information while they're in school to help them choose healthy relationships. Helpmate services are integrated with law enforcement, housing services, children's supports, medical providers, and many other partners in our community so that we can make every door the right door for survivors. None of this would have been possible without 2 things: the courage of survivors to raise their voices to change their community, and the generosity of people like you. Thank you for helping Hope to rise. Please join me as we commit to building a future where everyone has safe haven from the storm, where those who abuse are held to account for their harmful actions, and where our children learn to expect respect, a future where hope continues to rise. Thank you.
I first learned about Helpmate in 2000 when I met the executive director through our mutual work with the United Way of Asheville and Buncombe County. I became a Helpmate board member and then served as board chair. It's been gratifying to see Helpmate grow, expand the services available, and bring awareness about domestic violence to our community, and to know I played a part in this progress. I'm excited about their upcoming plans to expand their emergency shelter, which provides safe haven for victims rendered homeless as they flee abuse. Now, as Helpmate makes its home in the Buncombe County Family Justice Center, working with so many collaborating organizations to better serve those who seek help, I marvel at how our community has stepped up to make sure the vulnerable can access services. More people are finding help and lives are being saved, for which I am grateful. I think we all believe we understand domestic violence, but we do not until it affects either someone we know or when it gets even closer and happens in our own families. When we watch someone we know and care about struggle to understand the betrayal, the physical and emotional pain, the fear, and the grief that comes with suffering abuse from a person that they shared their life with, we feel many things. Sometimes we feel angry, anxious, or we share that survivor's grief. it can be hard to know what to do, where to turn for help. Having a safe and supportive place to be is important for those critical first hours and for the months that follow, especially if there are children involved. Helpmate provides a tremendous amount of support with a 24-hour hotline, shelter, court advocacy, case management, counseling, outreach, and education, including specialized services for survivors with children. My work as Director of Equity and Inclusion with the City of Asheville focuses on making sure all people in our community have what they need to thrive and to reach their full potential. It means that no one is disadvantaged, excluded, or dismissed in achieving this potential. Providing resources takes the ongoing support of all in our community. Make no mistake, domestic violence is an equity issue because it undermines our health by causing injury, disability, and premature death, and because it robs our community of the full participation of some of our neighbors who are struggling to recover from abuse at the hands of someone who promised to love them. This is especially true for women of color, who are twice as likely than their white counterparts to be murdered by their partner, and also more likely to experience long-term health impacts from the combined weight of enduring domestic violence and racism in our society. The physical and emotional effects are long-lasting for an individual, but also impacts all of us as our neighbors struggle to recover. A recent study tells us that when just one single child in a third grade classroom experiences violence in the home, the lifetime earning potential for every child in that classroom is lowered. We know that children who grow up in a home where there is domestic violence are 4 times as likely to perpetrate or experience abuse as adults. These costs are too high to go unrecognized. We must prevent violence by teaching children how to form healthy relationships, to resolve conflicts peacefully, and to set and respect boundaries. We must intervene swiftly and strongly after violence has been committed to hold the offender accountable and to support survivors. We must refuse to tolerate abuse in any form. As you know, the name of our event is Hope Rising, Standing with Survivors. Rising is the focus. Rising as survivors, as the organization, and as a community. Rising is an act of exerting our power or taking back what was taken from us. We rise when we model healthy relationships for others. We rise when we believe survivors. We rise when we speak up against abuse. We rise when we exercise the power of our time, the power of our purse, and the power of our vote to promote people, organizations, and policies that protect survivors. I hope you'll join me as we stand with survivors and work to find ways to rise up and support our community, the survivors among us, and Helpmate in continuing this vital and essential work. And now I would like to share a video of a brave survivor, Joy, as she shares with us her story of hope rising.
I am an Army veteran. I was a mechanic. We met in an Army leadership course. I did end up pregnant early on. Our unit was deploying. I was like, oh great, well now I can't deploy because I'm pregnant. One night I went to Walmart and I bought him everything he needed for deployment. When I got home, it was as though it was a totally different person in front of me. Blank stare. He pinned me to the wall. He threw my dog against the TV. It kept going and escalating. You know, I was trying to ask for help. I was banging on the floor because we lived in an apartment, and so I kept banging on the floor and, you know, trying to get somebody to help me, but no one ever came. He raped me again, and he forced me to do sexual acts on him. And then he started stomping on me. He kicked me and stomped on me in my stomach. After that, I ended up bleeding, and we went to the hospital, and the doctor was like, "Have you gone through trauma?" And he was sitting right next to me, you know, and I couldn't say. He stomped on me. I ended up losing the baby. I did go to my commanding officer, and I tried to tell him what happened. And he said to me, "You need to cut him some slack. He's under a lot of pressure." The feeling that you have of someone of that, you know, rank telling you, it made me feel like it was me, you know, it was me. I should have been nicer to him. I should have not triggered him. So I ended up being able to deploy, and so we deployed together. It was torture because, you know, you're afraid of dying outside, but then I'm also afraid of dying inside. He would point his gun at me, or in himself, you know, and say, "I'm gonna kill myself, you know, and I'm gonna kill you." And I volunteered to go outside of, you know, into the danger areas, just, you know, so that I didn't have to be inside. I'm just like, I'd rather just die out there. I ended up pregnant. Again. He was the one that told me I had to get out of the Army when I got pregnant in Afghanistan. I tried to leave lots of times. He had complete power and control over me and my whole life. One night, out of nowhere, he came in the house, and he was in the kitchen for a while. I was with the baby, and I was on my rocking chair, you know, I was feeding him. And then all of a sudden he came running out, and he had a huge knife with him, and he just ran towards me, and he put the knife to my son's throat. All of this happened really quickly. I went to the room, and I went into the closet. So I had like a pile of comforters, and I set him on the comforter. He was banging on the door, just, you know, and I knew that if I let him in, he would probably kill my child. So I opened the door and I closed it really fast behind me, and I let him just use me. He did a lot of things to me, and I'm just laying there like, oh my God, it isn't just me anymore. I have this other person that I need to protect, you know? Sorry. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, he had to go to work. As soon as I knew the U-Haul was gonna be open, I got one and I packed it and I left. I kept, you know, wanting to turn around because I kept thinking, he's gonna find me. He's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill my child. I have to go back, you know, I have to go back. My family was on the phone with me though, the whole time. So they were like, no, keep driving. I just want other survivors to know that there's no timeline in healing or, you know, surviving. There's no timeline. So you have to be patient with yourself.
Greetings everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is Dwayne Adams and I serve on the Helpmate Board of Directors. Politically, eliminating intimate partner domestic violence is on the short list of things that we can all comfortably agree on. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever experienced intimate partner violence? Do you know someone who has? For those of you who did not answer yes to these questions, I would encourage you to ask yourself if it's possible that someone you know is dealing with a volatile situation at home and you just don't realize it. After all, it's impossible to know everyone, and most of us have more acquaintances in our lives than friends. Have you had conversations with these acquaintances beyond the customary, "Hello, how are you today?" Why not? Is it because you don't have time? Is it because you have your own issues that you must deal with? Or is there some dormant fear that they may conjure up the nerve to address what's really going on? Are you afraid that if they do have the nerve, you may not have a solution? In my role as a business counselor at the Small Business Center, I am privileged to work with entrepreneurs every day, people who inspire and encourage me to be my very best. My role does not include the luxury of cherry picking those that I want to work with. My role is to assist anyone and everyone who comes before me. Nearly all entrepreneurs that I work with start out as acquaintances. When they come into my office, I am meeting them for the very first time. It's my job to provide a safe space for them to share. I learned years ago that the most important part of my role as a business counselor is not helping people start businesses, but it's to listen. Listening and asking questions, making conversations have become the most valuable tools in my possession when it comes to building relationships with people. Why? Well, it's because there's an entire life journey that leads an individual to make a life-changing decision. Starting a business is a life-changing decision, especially when someone sees it as a way out. Over 65% of our clients are women, and many of them are mothers. What may be surprising is the fact that some of these clients are homeless, in recovery, justice involved, and or the survivor of domestic abuse at the hands of an intimate partner. I've heard numerous profound recollections of verbal attacks, manipulation, abandonment, and physical abuse. I've had clients in front of me who have irreparable physical damage, all at the hands of an abuser. But the physical scars never seem to stack up to the mental and emotional suffering that ensues. You see, there are some scars that never heal, and those are the most painful. We must learn to manage them because we carry them for the rest of our lives. What you may not realize is that many of our clients who are dealing with an abuser are looking to start a business helping others who are experiencing or have experienced the same strife that they have. I've always been amazed that these clients aren't in it for a profit, but they're in it because they want to provide help in the form of hope and encouragement. Through all the chaos of trying to pay bills, trying to keep food on the table, raising children, and picking up the slack of an abusive partner without being abused themselves, they want to help and provide hope for others. I'm a true believer that a person can only help others as much as they can help themselves. The help that they need includes the support of Helpmate. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a cry for help, then you know that sense of urgency that I have when someone shares their truth of abuse with me. It's inexplicable. Instincts quickly tell me that I can't let this person leave without doing something. If one is struggling to meet the basic needs of food, safety, and shelter, they need help now. They need Helpmate to provide critical, life-saving services. I can list several clients who express their gratitude for Helpmate. I too am grateful for the Helpmate staff, our donors, volunteers, community partners, as well as my fellow board members. Addressing the need of a survivor of intimate partner violence is something that I've had to do way too much. I couldn't imagine the strength that it takes to address these needs daily. The work that Helpmate does is critical and they need our support. Granted, the things that they do in our community are outstanding. This organization not only works tirelessly when it comes to supporting survivors, but they are also tirelessly working to obtain the funds necessary to continue their work. I would like to extend a hand in asking you to pledge a gift today that will go towards continuing the services that Helpmate provides. But we have good news. 3 families have joined together to offer a $50,000 challenge gift to all of our guests this year. Thank you to the Sternberg family, the Reynolds families, and Nathan, Jennifer, and Emery Adams for pitching in to make the challenge possible. I would like for you to join me in accepting this challenge so that we can unlock the gift that this organization needs in order to continue along with their noble mission. This is the perfect time to pledge or send in your support so that we can show the folks at Helpmate, as well as our community, that we stand in solidarity in support of their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video and being a supporter of Helpmate. Your generosity means so much to the board, the staff, and of course to survivors.
May you all be safe and stay healthy.